Well, hello, bonjour. Thank you for attending, everybody. Welcome. Today's virtual municipal candidate forum is brought to you by the Urban and Community Studies Institute at the University of New Brunswick St. John campus. My name is Dr. Sarah Gander. I'm a pediatrician in the community here in St. John and a local advocate for a lot of issues as it pertains to children and youth. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather today is the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqey, Maliseet, and Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Wolastoqey, Maliseet, and Mi'kmaq peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized the Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey Maliseet title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. The Urban and Community Studies Institute would like to extend thanks to UNB's ITS team for assisting us with technical support for this virtual forum. UNB's communication and marketing team for helping us get the word out to the St. John community, the Neighborhood Action Group, Eastern Circle, St. John, Black Lives Matter New Brunswick, Chroma MB, Kaya Hemmings, UNB St. John's Students Representative Council, and the Graduate Students Association for submitting questions, and of course, to the candidates for participating. So just so you know, the virtual event is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube for the St. John community to watch if they were unable to attend live today. And all candidates have been sent the questions ahead of time, giving them time to read and understand each question. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves. I'll then ask the questions in order and say the candidate's name when it's their turn to answer. All candidates' microphones will be muted until it's their turn to answer, and each question you'll be given 2 minutes to answer each question. At the end of your time, your mic will be automatically muted. I'll then move on to the next candidate and continue this until all questions have been asked, and then you'll be given 2 additional minutes for a closing statement. The order will rotate each question to the next person alphabetically to be the first person to answer the question. So let's begin with opening statements, everyone. So it's a little challenging to know alphabetical order because not everybody has their last name on the list. But Heidi, are you able to see that in a way where you can unmute the first person? I'm guessing it might be Bruce. Or maybe Linnea, if I'm saying your name properly.
Linnea, yes.
Linnea? Pardon me. Linnea, you'll be unmuted and you can have a few minutes for your opening statement.
Great, thank you. Hello, my name is Linnea Astafin, and I'm looking to seek your vote to become your Ward 4 councillor. I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the unceded traditional land of the Wolastoqey and Mi'kmaq people. I decided to run for city council because I didn't find that my city councillors were interested in the concerns of my community and thought we deserved better. During the past several years, I have deeply involved myself in political advocacy, gaining plenty of knowledge and skills along the way. I presented on issues to all levels of government, from city council to provincial committees on climate change, tax reforms, National Energy Board, Energy Utility Board, and 2 Senate committees. This has all been on my own time, and I've done this on behalf of citizens and interest and not anyone else's. My passion is advocating for social and environmental issues and have been able to mobilize hundreds of people in rallies. This will be an important skill because we must push the provincial government on many issues, such as funds for public transit, climate change, tax reforms, and changes to the Tenancy Act. We can't do this without help from the public. We lack fairness, and we lack a public that is interested in participating in the political process. Our last municipal election, we had an embarrassingly low voter turnout of less than 38%. I will push for voices to be heard without having having a participatory democracy and restoring trust in elected officials. In my spare time, I chair a local social justice organization, Leap Forwards, and we work on income inequality, environmental issues, financial accountability, and grassroots citizen engagement. It is our jobs as potential elected officials to ensure voices of citizens are heard by giving them room to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Linnea. I think Bruce Court would be next. Bruce, are you able to? There you are. Bruce, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Are you able to click the little microphone, unmute?
It's on now.
It's on now. It's on now. It's on now.
Why did you do that?
It can be because you have more than one device open, which you
No.
did have before.
Just hang on. I'll shut my phone.
Perhaps if Chris Daggle's ready, he could go next and then we could wait for Bruce. Oh, he's back. Let's see what happens. So Bruce, you muted again because of the feedback. So maybe just unmute again and see if we've been successful. Doesn't allow me to unmute you for you. But you see the microphone picture with the line through it. Oh dear. Bruce, maybe what we'll do is I will move on and perhaps you can have a conversation with one of our folks again, but we will come back to you at the end of the opening statements and see if it can work out. So hang tight. Who do we have next? Chris Daigle, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Gander. I appreciate that. Good afternoon. Again, my name's Chris Daigle, and I'm looking for your vote for Ward 4 councillor here on May 10th. My background, I'm a lifelong resident of East St. John. I grew up in Champlain Heights, moved into the old East End, as we used to call it, off Courtney Avenue. And after having a little bit of fun and living life uptown, as they called it, I've settled back down in Forest Hills with my family, where I raise, with my wife, our two boys, and our two dogs and our brand new two cats. And professionally, for the past 10 years, I've been a commercial banker, which has given me a great insight into the economic development of our region. I've helped hundreds of businesses grow and become profitable, and everything from fisheries out in the Bay of Fundy to trucking companies to craft breweries and all stops in between. And through that, I've been able to do a lot of mentorship as we've been with entrepreneurs coming from maybe some disadvantaged backgrounds. So newcomers to Canada, we've got young entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs. There's been a lot of people who are coming out of poverty that are looking for advice on how to start a business. And I've been so fortunate to be able to work with those through Enterprise St. John, which is now Envision St. John, and through Connection Works Business Immigration Mentorship Program. It's been wonderful. Personally, I'm also a member of my children's school parent school support committee at Glen Falls School. I've volunteered at local food banks. I've coached sports like rugby and basketball. I've been a member of the St. John Trojans rugby club since I came back from university in 1995. I'm also a singer-songwriter. So when I put all that together, I feel like I have a really diverse background, raising a family out east, involved in economic development, involved in arts and culture and recreation. And I really think that is what's.
I think you got the hook, Chris, for your 2 minutes. Next we have Gina Hooley. My apologies if I didn't quite pronounce your last name properly, Gina.
So my name's Gina Hooley, and I'm also a candidate for Ward 4 East. I'd like to say hi to everybody here tonight. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little nervous. This is the first time I've ever done something like this. I have a lot of experience in the community and stuff, but never something to quite to this depth, I guess we call it. So I'm the past president of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers here in St. John. I've been involved since 2010 after a personal experience with a car crash. I most recently stepped down from my presidency role and took on treasurer to allow me more time to pursue my initiative to be the community counselor in East St. John. I'm the manager of the Maritime Opportunity Center in West St. John. Hi, Paul. I see you smiling at me. I'm the manager of the Maritime Opportunity Center in West St. John. So I work with different business levels of business every day. I've worked with new business developing through Enterprise St. John. I've worked with newcomers. I've worked with, I have some business owners that are dual citizens. I've worked with people who inevitably it just wasn't in their finances to be able to make business happen, but we were able to work on plans and to make things happen. When I came here back in, I believe it was somewhere between 2013, 2015, this building had a 90% vacancy rate, and I'm proud to say that we've been 100% full with a waiting list for about 2 years. You know, sometimes you don't realize the effects of your work on somebody else's business until you get the feedback from them after the fact. I decided to run for council because I am absolutely against the sale of St. John Energy and our utilized assets. I understand that we have some tough decisions to make, and I realize that a lot of them have been being made regarding our financial situation. I believe we can do that with respect. I'd like to see the relationships between our essential services and our council and our city staff be maintained going forward. I'd like to see the affordable housing come in, but not just affordable housing. We need safe housing, right? Just because you can afford the rent on the place doesn't really mean that you should be living there. So I believe that not only does the Tribunal for the Residency Act need to work on things regarding affordability, but we need to worry on things about safety. I believe that accessibility.
Thank you, Gina. Your 2 minutes was up. I think we're over to Kimberly Hughes.
Can you hear me?
You can. Go ahead, Kim.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Gander. My name's Kimberly Hughes. I live in East St. John. I'm hoping to get your vote for a Ward 4 candidate. I've been living in East St. John for 12 years. I've been a resident of St. John all my life, with the exception of a couple of years where I lived in Ottawa. And I love St. John. I don't have a big long resume like the few of the people that have been on so far. I've been a legal assistant for 32 years. I've worked at Romero House, volunteered at Romero House, and I've done street ministry, and I've been on a couple of boards. But I'd like to, I want to run for the city of St. John because I want to see something done about the water and sewer issue with regards to the amount of money that we pay for that. And I think a lot of us are on with the affordable housing thing as well. And also property taxes. So those are some of the things that I wanted to see that I could work with the Common Council, because I'm just one of many if I get elected. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Next we have Dan O'Connor. Dan, you're welcome to start your video too, or we can hear you. We can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So hello, I'm Dan O'Connor. As an introduction, I wanted to provide a bit of my background. So I'm a longtime resident of East St. John. I grew up in Champlain Heights. My father was a milkman for the area, so I learned the neighborhoods and a strong work ethic from a young age, helping him out in the summers and holidays. Graduated from Simons High. I attended UNBSJ and graduated from UNB with an engineering degree. My wife Sherry and I raised 2 boys here in St. John, with our youngest in his 3rd year at UNB. I currently work at Mariner, which is a locally owned IT company founded by Jerry Pond, and we have customers worldwide. So, for the last 5 years, I've served as your elected District Education Council representative, which is the New Brunswick version of a school board. So this council provides governance oversight for the district. We're probably best known for school sustainability reviews. We also approve capital budgets. We work with provincial government on school issues, and we set ends policies, which are the target goals for the superintendent of Anglophone South. I've enjoyed serving the public as your deck counselor, and I would like to apply that experience to continue serving the citizens of Ward 4. We need a team approach to manage the needs of St. John and make a positive, progressive change. We need people who are willing to dedicate their time and effort on your behalf, and I'm your candidate to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And last but not least, although we'll come back to another to Chris, I believe. So Paula Radwan Donovan. Oh,
okay.
There you go. We can hear you.
Thank you. So thank you to the University of St. John, New Brunswick Urban and Community Studies Institute for having me today. I just wanted to send us out a special thank you to JP Lewis and anyone who volunteered to make this happen, and to Dr. Sarah Gander for taking the time to moderate today, and for everybody for listening. So in my platform, I have focused on 3 main issues: tax reform, fiscal responsibility, and growth. I will be touching base on tax reform later in our segment, so I want to focus on the other 2 issues first. I think that our current mayor and council has started us on the right track by having put in place the first long-term financial plan. If elected, I will continue to ensure and hope that the new council will follow through with this plan. I know I certainly will be. It is essential to the prosperity of our city to ensure that we are optimizing our funds, saving for emergencies, and paying down our $212 million worth of debt. I will be focusing on spending our dollars on our needs before our wants. This is crucial for the long-term sustainability of our city. It is also essential that we grow our tax base. So I do have some plans that I've already started to work on with Develop St. John to help expand our small and medium-sized businesses, and also to assist developers to expand our architectural landscape. On top of that, I'd like to see implemented a settlement group for any newcomers coming from around our country. So right now we have settlement services in place for new immigrants, but I want to focus on helping settle other Canadians when they're coming into our city. I think that this would make a great addition to the current project that the Chamber of Commerce has, which is called Workation. So if you don't know about Workation, it's actually a project that they've put in place to help bring new people to our city, helping them to experience.
Oh, Paula, you may have also been given the hook there at your 2 minutes, but you'll have lots of time to answer some questions as we go forward. Bruce, did we want to try another, or did he abandon ship? I don't see him on the list here. Oh, there he is. Wonderful. Bruce, you have 2 minutes if it can work out for you. I'm sorry that we can't hear you. I feel like I'm reading your lips and you're saying, why isn't the microphone working? Oh, we got you for a second. There you are.
I'm there.
All right, let's do
Okay.
this.
I'll start. I'm the only person that's running for council that was a councilor before, other than Ray Stobridge. I saved the city millions of dollars in liability costs in the future because I was the only councilor in 2008 when the stock market crashed that went on the pension board. And I've been on the pension board for 14 years and have never got paid 5 cents for any benefits for being on the board. We reduced the liabilities in the future by millions of dollars by switching to the shared risk plan, both for St. John City and for St. John Energy, who were in the same boat, only in different numbers, because St. John City had 1,000 employees and St. John Energy had 100 employees, but both were in the same boat. So I was on the finance committee. I was on St. John Energy Board's operations board. I was on the pension board for the city, the pension board for St. John Energy. I was on the 8 Cities Association. I was on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, where I was on the advisory board for New Brunswick. I was liaison between the mayor and the senior citizens. I helped get the Hope Center built in East St. John. Had Forest Hill School soccer field fixed, what they're trying to do at Simons High School, but you're going to have to get the provincial government, because the field belongs to the province of New Brunswick and the school board, not City of St. John. They can't work on that field. Had traffic calming devices put around the city, especially in Glen Falls playground, and out on Heatherway, where there was a woman that got killed by a student one day. So, and I made it so that at any of the community centers that have children there, you can't embarrass that kid because they don't have the resources. All kids are allowed to go there. If they don't have the funding, they're allowed to go. The city pays for it. They're allowed to go, and they're not allowed to be embarrassed by any of the staff. So I thought that was really important to the kids there.
Bruce, you've used your 2 minutes, but there'll be lots of opportunity again, and we'll get to you with the questions. So we'll move on now to the forum questions. So the first question is, what is your position on the current housing crisis in St. John? Affordable housing, rent control, condemned buildings, property tax, gentrification, or other issues you feel are important? So we'll start with Linnea. You'll stop me if I'm not pronouncing your name properly. Go ahead, Linnea. Not unmuted, however. There you are.
Okay, sorry.
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, great. In 2020, there was a waiting list for housing in the region of 1,100 people. 42% were families with children, and we have a declining vacancy rate and rent increases with no cap. New Brunswick has the fewest protections for tenants compared to anywhere else in Canada. We have no rent control, and MB was just reported to have had the biggest rent hikes in Canada, 4.8%. Costs are far outpacing people's ability to pay and afford these increases. There is an imbalance between property owners and tenants, and this needs to be fixed. Nova Scotia introduced a 2% cap on rental increases for existing tenants and a ban on rent evictions. We need similar solutions and to have the Residential Tenancy Act reviewed. As a government, we should be putting public interest before private profit. I'm in favor of building more apartments and condos in our city. It creates construction jobs and residential property tax revenue for the city. However, I would like to see a more progressive affordable housing strategy, such as when units are being built, there's a commitment to contributing a certain number of affordable housing and social housing units, and commit to building 3-bedroom units. Montreal and Vancouver has progressive housing policies I'd like as well. As for dilapidated buildings, the city could purchase units before they get to the point where we demolish them, sell them to people for, maybe even $1, and these people can agree to turn them into low-income units. Or also we can look at exploring eco-friendly co-op housing units. On the so-called double tax, Nova Scotia and PEI also have similar taxes imposing a provincial and municipal property tax. Halifax is booming every time I go there with new units being built. Lastly, we need to retain our residents. Having rents increase in areas such as the South End will result in gentrification, and it's not fair that they're forced to move due to lack of regulations. Our city council needs to work to protect these residents by advocating for a fairer residential tenancy act.
Thank you. Bruce, back to you. Just give it a second. Oh. There you are.
There we are.
You're
The
getting the hang
cure.
of it.
Oh, okay. The position on the housing crisis to me is this. The parking commission shouldn't be allowed to buy all those vacant lots up and turn them into parking lots. They should be given back to low-income housing construction. And the city could give it back to them. They'll have to pay to tear down the buildings, but that's what they should do. Because when I was on the council, we went down to North End, and I forget it was 50 or 60 truckloads of garbage we hauled out of there in vacant lots. Now there's all kinds of vacant lots down there. So we should work with the provincial government, offer the land, and get them to build affordable housing, because people can't afford to pay $1,400 to live in an apartment. And people that are renting houses now should not be made to let people go in and look at them when they're paying rent. They have no protection. I know a woman that's got 2 kids, and she had to go out with her little baby for 4 hours so they could sell the house. That's not fair to the rentals people, the people that rent them. So, and I don't believe we should let any rich people buy the properties and then use it for their own gain to build businesses or stuff. All the vacant lots in the city should go to the people of St. John, to the people that need housing, and let them build low-income housing for everybody in St. John.
Okay. Over to you, Chris.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, this is obviously been a huge issue. It's actually hit a member of my family quite hard. So I've got some firsthand experience with that when I've seen their rent go up $200 a month, and they're senior citizens fixed income. So obviously the pandemic has magnified this problem. The cost of goods have significantly risen, and our wages have not. So at the end of the day, when I look at affordable housing and rent control, obviously we need some collaboration between all levels of government. This isn't just a city issue or a provincial issue. This is a human rights issue. But at the same time, St. John is open for business. We've seen that with the buildings that are going up. So we have to balance that, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. Where the city will work with developers, and Halifax has recommended, for example, registration and licensing of residential units, so you can get the compliance with the rules and standards. You can prevent the rent evictions. We can also then take a look at the surplus of municipal land and distribute that properly, so that we have people that want to build low income or moderately income housing for everyone, and we also have those that want to make a profit, because at the end of the day, we're trying to attract people to St. John. The current mayor has said we need 2,000 people every year. We're not going to do that by building just low-income housing. We do have to balance that, but we can't be looking at doing all the $1,200 a month and up. So I would say that, when we take a look at our bylaws for our buildings that are condemned, it's all about timing, making sure that we have the staff to enforce the bylaws, so that maybe we can ward off a building from being condemned and someone can come in and fix it. So those are some of my ideas on that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gina Hooley.
With this being an issue, like it's been mentioned, it's a multi-level of government thing. I've had a personal experience with an abandoned building that I happen to know the owner had deceased in Uptown St. John. There's legal liabilities to that. 9 times out of 10, you're waiting for the province to repossess the property for unpaid taxes before they can then put it up for tender. Maybe there's a way that we could look at that. Another thing is it's been shown and proven time and time again, you know, to have mixed levels of like income families and apartment buildings and stuff. So like if we could have some more of that, so that we don't have certain areas where it's like, you know, here's all your wealthy, here's all you're not so wealthy, right? Like we really do need to try to avoid that. With some of our heritage laws, sometimes it does become a challenge for homeowners financially to maintain these buildings. And maybe sometimes that's, you know, with an older city, you have older structures, right? Also, like I said in my opening speech, we don't just need affordable housing, we need safe housing. People need to be able to go home at night, lay their head down and not worry about their pipes bursting, not worry about animals coming out of their thing, not worried about, well, is this door actually going to shut for me today or not? People need to be safe in their homes, and yes, they need to be able to afford them at the same point. Another thing, I don't know if it's ever been looked at, when new developers develop for the city, they have to put so much money into a fund for like public space or playgrounds. You know, it goes into a fund and then eventually the monies get utilized. Have they ever looked at doing like a social fund for affordable housing where the municipality can give a little bit of kickback to the provincial government? Because typically right now, all of the housing programs, to my knowledge, I believe are all housed by local nonprofits or by the government of New Brunswick. I'm not aware of any affordable housing that's owned and maintained by the municipality, but maybe we could have that fund available.
Thank you, Gina. Kimberly Hughes. Just give it a second to come on, Kim, just so we don't miss your opening words. There you go.
It's gonna seem like I'm piggybacking off of Gina, but anyway. Some people might not agree with this, but I believe that why can't the city buy these condemned buildings for $1, fix them up, and then rent them to people? I know that some people believe that the city should not become a landlord, but why can't we do that for a little while? Have property management companies manage them for us. And then when we have enough, we could create a new department in the city. And that way we're creating jobs and we're also creating revenue for the city. So I don't understand why we wouldn't be able to do that. So yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Dan O'Connor?
There, did I get unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good to go.
Great, thanks. So I guess I'm encouraged by the number of new apartment buildings and units that are currently being built or proposed for the St. John area. So this increased capacity should have ripple effects in all markets and help provide a bit of stability and increased inventory. As a councillor, I'll support projects and policies that create an environment where developers are able to grow our city and enhance our economy. This should be true for the entire city, corner to corner. We need to continue to guide growth with multiple factors in mind, including population growth, economic growth, that will encourage more people to want to live and work in St. John. We need to be creating new communities with developments that include options for walking and biking. As we've learned from the pandemic, we need to prepare for space outside as well as inside during certain unknowns. So we have a lot of space to grow inside the city limits, particularly in Ward 4. So let's make it work for the city. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dan. And Paula?
Yeah, so the current housing crisis is really worrisome to me, and it's been getting progressively worse in the last year. So with the current buildings that are being developed, of course, many of them are high-end units, but thankfully some of them are going to be affordable housing units. I do think that it's essential that the city of St. John have an affordable housing plan, and I hope to have the opportunity to make a motion to do that. I don't believe that rent control is the answer, but we should have more subsidized housing units and work with developers to ensure that we can get more affordable units in our city. With that said, I'd love to see the city make arrangements with developers to give them land to secure affordable housing units. Right now we have over 1,500 pieces of land available to sell or to make these arrangements with. I also think that we could change our rezoning structure so that it encourages other levels of architecture, as long as they would be affordable housing units. And of course, we have to make sure it's safe to do so in those areas and still stays in line with our Plan SJ plan. It is essential that we keep it as part of our plan to have these affordable housing units all over the city to avoid gentrification. So another thing that I would be advocating for is actually with our provincial government is the elimination of double taxing properties. I'm happy to see also that the city already has a plan in place to try to match up developers with condemned buildings. This is a step in the right direction, but there's so much more to do, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves to help out with these processes.
Awesome. Thank you, Paula. As we move on to question 2, just a reminder to the candidates that we'll cycle. So for this question, Bruce will begin, and then we'll end with Linnea, and then that pattern will continue just so everyone feels like they can be first sometimes. So our next question is, what is your position on tax reform? And so Bruce, we'll start with you, please.
Hello.
Great
My
job.
position on tax reform is to have a flat tax for the whole province of New Brunswick. People living anywhere in the province should pay based on the value of their house, the size of their house. And the flat tax, and then the money, the additional money should go back to the cities, because the cities can't survive on the taxes. When you have industry in there and the money all goes to Fredericton, and then you get unconditional grant money back, you don't even know how much money you're going to get unconditional grants back. So it goes to Bucktooth, Rishabutto, doesn't all go to St. John. The building up at East Point alone, it'll take 20 years of tax dollars just to pay for the infrastructure up at East Point. So when you have apartment buildings, that's great. They should build them for low income and other people that want to move into them. But if we get more housing, regular housing, that money comes back 100%. Like me, I paid $5,200 property tax. It stays in the city. It doesn't go to the unconditional grants. We got to get the flat tax for the whole province, whether you live in Bucktooth or wherever, because you get to use all the provincial like the hospitals, what ambulance service or whatever. So have a flat tax and then give the excess money back to the city so they can survive, because the cities has to provide a place for people to work. People don't see that.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Chris Daigle, you're up. Tax reform.
Thank you. Tax reform is just essential for the survival of St. John. This is, we've heard this message for the past number of years. We also saw it that every MLA running, no matter what party, that was what they stood on in St. John back in the fall. So, and I agree, we do, you know, we send a lot of our tax dollars outside of the city, especially on the industry side. We don't see a lot of that coming back. And even if we kept a larger portion of it, it would look after the deficit that we have here in St. John, that operating deficit where we had the exercise of cutting $10 million. If we're attracting people, there's no way we should be cutting $10 million. We got to find ways to keep that money here. And so my position would be to work hand in hand, again, collaboration with our MLAs. They said that they wanted to see that for St. John. So we need to see some action on that. We need to see some updates. It's great that there's reports coming out and they're studying it, but it's not quick enough. We are going to lose out. Again, we're going to, instead of needing 2,000 people a year, we're going to be at 3,000, then 4,000 because we're waiting. So we really need to demand some urgency from those that have the legislative powers to make this happen. And again, I know it's happening, but for St. John's survival, we need to be a very loud group of representatives with our provincial counterparts, and we need to hear from them as well. And we should be demanding that from, you know, if we elected these people and that was one of our main focuses was the tax reform happening here in St. John, well, there has to be some movement on it, and not 6 months before the next provincial election or whatever. It needs to happen now. So that's where I would stand. I'd be that voice.
Thank you, Chris. Gina? Hooley? Tax reform.
Guys, so tax reform, something, I don't know if my camera's on or not. Oh, sorry. I'm still at work while I'm doing this, so I keep turning my camera on and off. I apologize. So tax reform, something I'm pretty passionate about, something I've already kind of started to work on. I've met with Jeff Carr, I met with Glenn Savoy and Blaine Higgs virtually, like by phone, email, one or two of them in person pertaining to this issue. At the end of the day, St. John is the GDP of New Brunswick. We literally, the most of our goods and services come right out of our being the port and the hub of the province. It comes from here. We generate 46 million. So I got these figures from Kevin Fudge, the city's finance. So we have $46 million in revenues that are created from the tax base here, and we get $16 million back in unconditional grants. The province that retains the $30 million. And I understand that the province has expenses. You know, they have the leading provincial hospital, the regional hospital here in St. John. We get the tax base from that. That's understood, and we do appreciate that as a citizen in St. John, having such a such a wonderful place. I guess I used to work at the regional. I'm not sure the word I'm looking for at the moment. But we still need to be able to take care of our own, right? It would be the same as you at your house. To bring this down to people that don't quite understand taxes and numbers. You know, if you had to pay your mortgage and it was $400 and your brother needed to pay his, are you going to give your brother the money to pay his mortgage, or are you going to pay yours first? You take care of your own first, right? So I definitely would like to see us make a committee to work with the provincial government. I know that they are promising municipal tax reform. They are looking at it. I believe they are making a committee that's going to work with the municipalities to make this happen. Hopefully it happens sooner than later. Probably going to get cut here again for time, but we definitely need to work on this. Everybody has to work together. With the $10 million that was recently cut from our economy, I'm concerned what the ripple effects of.
You were cut off, Gina. Thank you very much for moving on to Kimberly. Kimberly, your thoughts on tax reform?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I agree that our province does need tax reform. We've got the highest tax rate in the province in St. John. And I know there's a lot of seniors that are on fixed incomes, and some of them are widowers or widows, and they're having a hard time paying the property taxes because the taxes are so high and they're struggling. And some of them have had to sell their homes, which they didn't really want to. They've lived there like 30, 40 years. So I know there is some issues with regards to that. And so one thing I didn't understand, this is about the like last November when the city gave lower rates with regards to the water and sewer and to some companies. And then that ended up that we were losing like hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. Well, that could have helped the city, you know, with regards to our taxes and tax reform. So I'm not sure. I don't understand why that was done. But anyway. But yes, we definitely need tax reform in the province. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Dan O'Connor, your position on tax reform. Can hear you nicely.
There we go. Sorry. So thank you. So tax reform is essential to our long-term future. We have to find ways to allow St. John to keep more of the property tax collected inside our borders and push for regional cooperation on shared services. We also have to continue to push to see the elimination of the double tax on non-owner occupied properties to keep rents manageable. The model of St. John taxpayers subsidizing the outlying communities may have worked at one point, but in the current climate, change is needed for the long-term survivability of the entire community. So it will be interesting and helpful to hear from the provincial government on their reforms for municipal and other forms of local government. We also need to work with our neighboring communities to find models that work. So I'll look forward to working with colleagues at the council table and our provincial government on local governance issues, particularly tax reform. All this knowing that our essential services are tied to long-term tax reforms. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Paula?
So the reason why I've made tax reform part of my platform is because I truly believe that it is going to transform the lives of St. John residents. Other cities have a competitive advantage over the city of St. John because it's appealing to move there to save money, which allows residents to have a higher quality of life. First, the tax coming from heavy industry equals to $12 million a year. The province keeps $9 million of those dollars, and the city has proposed that the province leave those funds in the city of St. John. I mean, if we're going to have the responsibility to try to keep up to all the upkeep impacted from heavy industry, it's essential that St. John gets to keep these funds. Secondly, we do need to have some regionalization in our tax structure so that our urban core does not have to compensate for the rate for the suburban areas. With having heavy industry, we do have to make sure that the residents are not having to pay a higher tax rate just to compensate. Right now, we only get to keep $17 million of the $47 million of tax revenue generated by our city. This can't continue. We can also ensure better pricing for our region if we're collaborating on more procurement for services and supplies. Thirdly, I believe that the city of St. John should be able to set tax classes and be able to adjust tax rates as they see fit to look after the whole city. This is a common practice in other provinces, and so we need to change this to ensure our long-term sustainability. So finally, it is really important for the city to be able to take dividends from St. John Energy, which they cannot currently do because of legislation slated by the province. So this information was previously presented in the white paper by the previous city manager, Jeff Trail. Since then, I have already been advocating in support of the city manager when Jeff Trail was in office, and the province is committed to, to actually changing our tax process.
Thank you, Paula. And last for this question is Linnea.
Hi there. The Jeff Trail report to City Council in October 2017 outlines that we need to advocate for an equitable taxation among residents, commercial businesses, institutions, and industry. The Slacking Kitchen report concluded that there's little St. John can do to improve fairness absent from changes to provincial legislation. Our city's main source of revenue is from property taxes, which is about 120 million and 78% of overall revenues. Our city presented at the Provincial Legislative Committee on Motion 31, which is to look at exemptions on heavy machinery and equipment. I too presented to this committee, and I'm the only New Brunswick citizen to present to have these exemptions removed. I did this on my own time because our city needs to have this reversed so we can afford things like public services such as fire, transit, and to run our city properly. The province draws 46 million annually in provincial property taxes from the St. John tax base. If we implement the suggested changes in the Slacking Kitchen report, we could reduce our tax rate to only 1.695. We also need to have changes to allow our city to set our own tax rates, allowing municipalities control over setting tax classes and tax rates. This would ensure we have fair treatment for everyone. If machinery and equipment was assessed in St. John, the property tax environment would shift dramatically. It would undoubtedly see less people moving to the outlying areas. All unions agree we must get tax reforms. I believe the city has spent far too much time fighting with unions, sometimes in an aggressive public manner, when all along we should have been working alongside our public sector employees to push for tax reforms. Our city has done an amazing job working on getting these changes, and I applaud their efforts. But we need someone like me to get the public involved for pushing for these changes as well. Asking politely doesn't always work to tax certain industries more. At the committee I presented, most presenters were.
Thank you, Linnea. So as I said, we're skipping people to make it fair where we start. So question number 3, we'll start with Chris Daigle. So if elected, how will you show support for St. John's 2S LGBTQIA+ community?
Thanks, Dr. Gander. This is a subject I had to do a little bit of research on, and rightfully so. I needed to understand it a little bit more, and I came across 2 things. First was the city of Vancouver, I think, does it right. They have a committee, an advisory committee that works as a link between the community and the city council and the staff of the city, and they collaborate and provide input on issues of concern for that for that community. And I think that's probably, if I was looking to say what we need to do, boots on the ground, that's going to be one of those things that I would push for. And it may already exist, but I don't see it. I don't hear about it. These are things that the city needs to do better at promoting what they've done. And then the other place I looked at was it was the Canadian Commission for UNESCO, and they had an LGBTQ2+ inclusiveness toolkit for inclusive municipalities. And there were some great things in there that I think the city, again, should be looking at doing if we haven't done already, like in city-owned properties, provide safe access to washrooms and change rooms, appropriate signage so that it's gender-neutral signs when there's, a one-stall bathroom. Use of the correct pronouns. I've learned that is a huge thing for those that have identified their pronouns. And again, something of respect, which we should be doing for everyone. We should be showing that respect. One of the big things I do that I'm for is an audit of workplace forms, policies, and procedures so that we have gender inclusive language. It's no longer should be a he, she, or anything like that. It should be a they, them. And then finally, developing and communicate a commitment statement of diversity inclusion. I'm part of a diversity inclusion committee for my national organization that I work with. And having that statement available to everyone, whether it be citizens or employees, is key so that we know what direction we're heading into as an organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Gina Hooley.
Hello. So as Chris had mentioned, I think that there's more to it than just attending a parade and making some noise about the issue a few times a year. I definitely think the key to prevention is through education. So I think that having this information, the accessibility, this community needs to be loved and understood. They don't just need to be told. And so I think it's time that we listen and start physically engaging them and doing some of the things, you know what I mean, to make them feel more acceptable. Might be like that, having gender neutral washrooms or whatnot. I haven't spoken to anybody from the community, so I haven't heard what their concerns are recently, but I definitely would be willing to listen. I definitely would be willing to engage, and I would definitely be willing to advocate for them, whatever that they would need. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Kimberly Hughes, your thoughts?
Hello?
Yeah, there you are.
Hi. I'm not really sure how to answer this question because I thought when we were elected to council, we represent all communities. We represent this community, the Black community, the Native community, the Chinese community, the Muslim community, because I just thought we were representing everybody. And we should be looking out for everybody's interest, including this community as well. As we become members of council, be sensitive to all the things that every community needs. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Kim. Dan O'Connor.
Hello. So for those of you in the audience with children in our schools, you may have seen the curriculum and programming additions in classrooms, school libraries, painted sidewalks, flags, gender sexuality alliances, and other ways schools are teaching and creating positive attitudes about diversity. So this is a direct result of district education councils and policies that was set by elected councillors, including myself. So this work is being expanded right now to include anti-racism and reviewing systemic racism in our schools. So I would look forward to doing the same as a city councillor, ensuring we have policies in place to ensure everyone feels welcome and supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Paula Radwan.
Thank you, Dr. Gander. So I strongly believe in having an inclusive community. I want to live in a world where we all care about each other, treat everybody with a caring heart and dignity. Some things that I think that's essential in City Hall, though, is to ensure that we have ongoing training with our police force so that they know how to deal with any challenges that any of our minority communities may face. Another part of policing is that it's essential is preventative crime to ensure that hate crimes are non-existent. I can't stress how essential this is. Nobody should have to go through this experience. If elected, I will be proposing strong policies to be put in place to ensure citizen safety. I also want to make sure that we have an equal opportunity for all minority groups to work in City Hall. We need to ensure that there are no barriers to keep minority groups from getting work in our City Hall, and that the decision for hiring is based solely on credentials. If elected, I will be there to support all citizens. We should be here for each other and always support one another. We are so much better together than we are apart.
Thank you, Paula. Linnea Stephen?
If elected, I will push to have a poverty and social inclusion committee, which can have members of this community and Black, Indigenous people of color included in it. Moncton has this sort of committee already as part of their city council. Or we could look at having an advisory committee that can work cooperatively with civic agencies whose activities affect 2S LGBTQIA+, including initiating and developing relevant projects. I too read what Chris read. This is what Vancouver has. I will put a motion forward to have City Council and staff get training and education to better serve this community. I'll attend pride parades, flag raising, participate in Trans Day of Visibility, be an ally, but it's important that I not be their voice, but allow them to use their voice in city matters as well. I think it is also important to see members of this community get elected to council, and I would like to support some sort of initiative to make this possible. Ensure they have enough access to healthcare. Unfortunately, the major facility that was available to them was Clinic 554, and that was closed by our provincial government. It was their option for patients to receive trans, LGBTQ, queer, and HIV care, and I've advocated to have this clinic reopened for these members of our community because they deserve to have proper health care as well.
Thank you so much. And Bruce, this question ends with you.
All right. I'll do what I did when I was on council before. I treat all people equal. I don't look at people and say, you're this, that, or whatever. You're just a person. We're all equal. We're all put on this earth to help one another. And I try to do that every day. I try to help somebody. But everybody's equal and everybody has the same rights. And that's the way I did it. I never looked at people. If they asked me to do something, I did it. I didn't say, where did you live, or how much money you got, or who's your brother, who's your cousin. I just did it. And that's the way I would do it in the future. We're just all people. We're all God's creation. So that's the way I look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to question 4, which, unless I've made a mistake, we'll start with Gina. Cycling, walking, and public transit are often the modes of transportation for many people in the St. John community, in particular those who reside in the priority neighborhoods and school students of all ages. Yet inadequate public transit and dangerous cycling and walking conditions put many of these folks at risk. How would you address street safety through the lens of active transportation? So Gina, you can kick it off for us here.
So pertaining to public transit, again, we need to be able to utilize some of these tax dollars to put more money into transit. You know, like I said, I manage the Maritime Opportunity Center over here in West St. John. Our bus route was cut a few years ago. I live in Champlain Heights. We've seen a reduced service. You know what I mean? Our accessibility amongst the city is not what it used to be. I mean, I used to be a proud teenager. That monthly bus pass, I felt like I had the world at my fingertips. I would get on the bus and I could go anywhere, right? And I can't do that anymore. So, you know, I want our children, like I have children, I have 3 kids. My son's a teenager. I'm tired of playing mom's taxi. I would absolutely love to just hand him a bus pass and send him on his way. But like you said, it's not safe, right? I don't want my son driving his pedal bike to certain places. Do you know what I mean? I have to worry about things like the bike being stolen. I have to worry about things like his safety at crosswalks. For people who have physical impairments, you got to worry. Sometimes curbs are an issue, right? Sometimes curbing looks nice, it's curb appeal, but it's not always accessible for people. So these are definitely things that are going to have to be looked into. They're definitely going to need to have maybe some different provisions implemented pertaining to these. I don't know exactly what they are. I wish I had the answer right away, but I don't. But I'm willing to work with the people who have the experience in these things to make this stuff happen so that we can have a safe and accessible St. John for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Kimberly Hughes, transportation in St. John.
So for the public transit, like bus services, I think like when you go to big cities, you can get on a bus that goes anywhere and you can ride the bus all day long if you wanted to. And I think we need more bus services in St. John, like with longer hours for the buses, because I think out east, the bus stops around 5 o'clock to the Champlain Heights one. I don't think you can get a bus after 5:30. And yeah, so we need more. I believe if we had better routes, longer hours, maybe more people would ride the bus. And we also need more cycling lanes, especially on the east side. We don't have too many of those. And we need to clear the sidewalks more effectively in the wintertime. So then, wouldn't be, because in the wintertime, I know around here, if we get a big snowstorm, you don't see the plows on the sidewalk. People are walking on the road when they're going out for walks for at least a couple days anyway. And we need more sidewalks, because on one side of the street we've got all kinds of sidewalks, or on the other side we don't have any, or we have some streets where there's no sidewalks at all. So we need to fix that. And also we have, like in Champlain Heights, they have some paths. Like I have one by my house for the children to go to school, and we need to repair those more quickly, because this path has been like worn down for a couple of years now, and it needs to be repaired. There's a big hole a kid could fall into, for crying out loud. But anyway, so yeah, so if we did more of that kind of stuff, it would make things safer for people to be able to do with the public transit, the cycling and the walking.
Thank you, Kim. Dan O'Connor, active transportation in St. John.
Hello. So as a city, we have to continue to make our streets safe. Loch Lomond Road is likely one of the busiest streets in the city. And we still have a 3-kilometer section near Loch Lomond School without a sidewalk. Sidewalk plowing is also a concern near our schools. If you live within 1.5 kilometers of a school, your son or daughter may be walking. So this past winter, we heard from parent groups from around the city, as well as school principals, that snow clearing wasn't sufficient. So as a city council, we should direct staff to find efficiencies and place a bit more focus on improving our sidewalk clearing, particularly within school zones. The safety of our kids is important. Sidewalks were further highlighted a few years ago. Well, the DEC was in the midst of reviewing 7 St. John schools under a policy 409. A parent was concerned about the distance and walked the walk by going from the south end to a proposed other location. She described how she'd pushed a carriage uphill in the winter on slushy roads as the sidewalks weren't plowed yet. It highlighted to me that you must walk the walk with people in your neighborhood to understand the challenges. So as a councillor for Ward 4, I will talk with my constituents about their needs. I want to learn from them and work with them to improve transportation in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Paula Radwan. Active transportation.
Thank you, Dr. Gander. So street safety is extremely important to our community in St. John, and after one of our own citizens was killed while riding a bike, it must become a priority for council to deal with. I'm a huge supporter of active transportation, especially as many of our citizens are facing more financial challenges since the pandemic. I'd love to see more bike lanes and road diets become part of any restructuring that is taking place in St. John. So currently we have 600 kilometers of roads and 250 kilometers of sidewalks to maintain. And installing road diets and bike lanes will not only make it safer for our citizens, but it'll also make it more cost effective to maintain. Now, active transportation actually remains one of the top 5 reasons that new residents move into new cities, and population growth is essential for St. John. We also need to ensure that we have an efficient transit service that's available to residents as much as possible. So my big concern after riding the bus was that there actually is no current way to measure the demand on the bus route. So my thought is we do need to instill a system where each transit user uses a card. So in Ontario, they have something that's called a Presto card. So what this would do is it would allow us to monitor how much demand there is at what times. So this is the best way to ensure that citizens not only are paying to optimize transit usage at times when it's most needed, but it will also ensure that we're not paying for empty buses. So if elected, I will be requesting to sit on the Public Transit Commission to help optimize our services for our citizens in St. John.
Thanks, Paula. Linnea, Stephen?
St. John Cycling has identified 8 areas that could be used to make our city more bikeable, walkable, and accessible for everyone, and I'm supportive of these ideas. Most cities have dedicated bike lanes. It's common for Halifax, for instance. I've been to many communities over the election, and many have paths all through them, such as Forest Hills and Champlain Heights, and can easily create corridors of transportation to complement public transit. It would make us a much healthier, livable city. These sorts of policies help invigorate neighborhoods in New York and Toronto, for instance, but many areas of the city also call for traffic calming. There are over 100 requests for traffic calming in St. John. We're a car-centered city, and it hasn't always made our streets safe for people cycling or walking. The federal government has announced a new funding stream that would provide 80% in matching funds. St. John Cycling has been trying to get members of the public to advocate for these funds, but City Council also needs to advocate for this money. New people moving here want these types of transportation, whether it's biking or public transit, and we look years behind without this sort of infrastructure. Fredericton has amazing biking routes available, and there's plenty of people using it. The city has COVID relief money, and it needs to be put back in transit right away, and I'll push for this. With the modernization of St. John Transit with the help of the Stantec report, adding bike racks, new software for a functional GPS tracking system, improving routes and active transportation integrated together, it would better improve our city, make it a place where people want to live and stay here. We also need routes that work for people who use the bus. I live in Redhead. Our route was cut a few years ago. I've taken the bus when my home had one car and both my spouse and I work different shifts. And we also need better working transit system for people with disabilities.
Thank you so much. Bruce Court, active transportation.
Hello. Well, I hate to pick on the parking commission, but I like to take the revenue that the parking commission got and use it for cycling lanes and stuff throughout the city. I live off of Hillcrest Road, and they cycle there, but the road is just too narrow, and the city has a lot of old roads that are too narrow, like the part out by Loch Lomond School. It's too narrow to put in sidewalks, and sidewalks are very expensive, but the roads are too narrow. So you're either going to have to slow down the traffic with common devices, or you're going to have people like down in Glen Falls that speed up when they come to after they leave the common devices. They speed up because we're in a hurry because they don't get up early enough to get wherever they're going on time. So it's a no-win situation. The buses should be made so that more people can use them at a cheaper rate. They're getting too expensive for people to use. And I think seniors should get a discount and students should get a discount, and we should subsidize it through the tax rate. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Finishing with you, Chris Daigle, active transportation in St. John.
Perfect, thanks. There's two aspects of this active transportation and taking a look at the safety of this type of transportation. First and foremost, talking with residents in the area, our winter management plan is not working. You can't allow kids to walk to school on Champlain Drive on the street. The sidewalks need to be plowed if we're going to have school that day. Plain and simple. It's a priority one. Someone's going to get killed. So we need to fix our winter management plan And I think that would go a long way for active transportation in those months. My other side of it goes along with the St. John cycling. I've heard the quote, and I love it: paint is not infrastructure. If you take a look at any of our existing bike lanes right now, the paint is faded. We spend too much money repainting. So let's look at buffer areas, maybe some devices, curbing, whatever, but there's other ways of doing it, and it can't be just paint. We also have to take a look at consistent signage on all bike lanes. There's great signage out in Milledgeville for that bike lane that goes along University Avenue, but there's nothing on our bike lanes in Loch Lomond Road. So in order for the motorists to understand there's bike lanes here, there has to be consistent and frequent signage. I think those are two very, what I'm thinking is low-hanging fruit on what the city needs to work on. Those are key. And then we also got to take a look at our pathways and making, Kim's talking about the paths in Champlain Heights. I used to walk those when I was a kid to get to school some 40 years ago. And it's amazing. It's just like and they're all through Forest Hills where I live. And if we maintain those, because those are crumbling, we got to maintain that infrastructure and encourage people to walk. Because wellness, health and wellness, we'll also see a good thing for our province where we put money less to healthcare and more towards initiatives like this.
Thank you. All right, so Kim, get ready because you're kicking off question number 5 here. How will you contribute to the City of St. John's commitment to reconciliation with the First Nations communities in our surrounding areas?
Yeah, I do recognize that as an issue and would like to find a way with Common Council to be able to recognize it for the First Nations communities. That's it.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you. Dan O'Connor, your thoughts on reconciliation.
Right, thank you. So when I'm elected, we'll review all that I can to have a better understanding of the city's commitments to our First Nations people. I'll learn what I must do to support the efforts of council and the city manager and staff toward reconciliation. We're also aware of recent interactions between our provincial government and our Indigenous neighbors and friends. So we're looking at a multi-level interaction and one that should be managed with respect and preservation of dignity for all involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paula, your thoughts on truth and reconciliation?
Thank you, Dr. Gander. So I'd just first like to take the time to recognize that we are fortunate to live on the land of the Maliseet, Wolastoq, and Mi'kmaq people. Our First Nations community holds such an important part of our history in Canada. I think that we should be celebrating the unique culture of our Indigenous people. First and foremost, it is essential that we are following and supporting the treaty rights of our First Nations. Secondly, I would love to build a strong relationship between our First Nations community by listening to their needs and wants. We can't know what challenges any of our residents are having if we don't ask them. I want our First Nations community to feel that they can come to me to discuss any of their concerns. I will always try to advocate for our residents, and if that means trying to help build the communication between our First Nations and other levels of government, I'm certainly willing to do that. I do think that it is important that our police department also get involved in crime prevention for our First Nations people. Unfortunately, there has been so much crime against our Indigenous communities across our country. These sorts of actions should never be tolerated in our community. Crime prevention is the key. I would like to set policy specifically to adopt and implement all appropriate standards, guidelines, policies, and directives to address and end racial profiling, including First Nations in law enforcement. I hope if I do get elected, when I do make this motion, that I'll be supported by the entire council. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Linnea, reconciliation.
First thing we need to do is to have a land acknowledgement at the beginning of city council meetings. This should have been implemented before the singing of O Canada. We currently don't have much of a relationship with First Nations in the surrounding areas. We don't consult with them on projects. We should look at changing this. The city does have a local 10 group for off-reserve First Nations people as part of the Aboriginal Peoples Council. I have been to their meetings and on occasion. We should be working to have a better relationship with them. I've been a member of the Peace and Friendship Alliance for several years and have been lucky to take part in the blanket exercise a few times. This is something that should be mandatory for every new council member and staff every 4 years. It is an exercise that teaches the true history of Canada and what happened to Indigenous people when our ancestors settled here. Growing up, most of us didn't learn this in school. As part of our city's commitment to reconciliation, learning this history should be step one. As we should also learn about peace and friendship treaties, there's a large monument on Fort Howe about them, but we never speak about them. What is not understood is we're all treaty people. Our city could use a permanent facility called a friendship center for First Nations people to gather. We don't have anything like this now for Local 10. Halifax has a friendship center right in its downtown area. We should work on implementing items from the Murdered Missing Indigenous Women and Girls report on a city level, having Indigenous people sit on the police commission if they want. When hiring new staff, we should look to hire people who are Indigenous or Black Indigenous and from the 2SLGBTQIA plus community first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bruce Court, over to you. Reconciliation for our First Nations peoples.
I believe that we should live up to all the commitments that they made in the past to the Native people of New Brunswick. I was shocked to learn that in Big Cove Reserve, there's 32 people died last year and not from coronavirus. And it's a problem that was never addressed by the province of New Brunswick. That's not fair to those people. Those people were here and they helped build Canada to the country it is. And they deserve the agreements to be honored by all people, whether it's in St. John. I think the closest reserve now is either Big Cove or St. Mary's in Fredericton. I don't think there's any in St. John that I've ever heard of. And it was not too long ago that a Native person had the Native place on top of Fort Howe, and they used it in the summer, and it was popular. People went to see it, so you could do it again. I don't put something up there in memory of them or anything like that to help them, but they deserve the help. That's it.
Thank you, Bruce. Chris Daigle, over to you. Reconciliation for First Nations peoples in New Brunswick and specifically St. John.
Perfect. Thanks. This is a topic where I believe City Council needs to take a leadership role in that we need to have some community action. Again, Councillor Hickey a few weeks ago tried to put the motion forward about having the land acknowledgement and was told, no, we're working on something. Well, this isn't something that should be working on, it's something that should already be in place. People, companies, even corporations have been doing this for over a year. That's a simple act that could have already been in place. The idea that we have an education center, and I like going through Brunswick Square now, you can see the Black people, people of color, they have a cultural center that's being built up in there now, put together. I think Ralph Thomas is taking the lead on that. That's fantastic. Why can't we need to do something like that? There's a lot of empty commercial space, and it would be nothing to rent that out, hire some students, again, and there should be students from that community, with a history of the Mi'kmaq, Wolastoqey, or Passamaquoddy nations that help put that together and share the culture of those nations with us. It's where this is where our nation's been built upon. And the city needs to take a role. And again, we've got an arts and culture coordinator in Kate Wilcott. She's awesome. Doing a festival or some cultural awareness. These are things that need to happen. And the city, again, we need to give the marching orders for that to go forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Gina Hooley, closing the question on reconciliation with you.
Hello. So again, the key really at the end of the day, the key to ending all the world's problems is through education. And with that being said, this is not a subject that I was educated on. I was aware that there was issues in the province with First Nations and that they were meeting with our provincial and federal leaders. I don't know the exact specifics. I do know that if I was elected to council, that I would treat everybody fairly equally. I would listen, I would be engaged. I have absolutely no problem advocating for whatever is going to be the right answer to find this reconciliation. I was able to learn quickly today that there's 15,000 First Nations living in 28 reserves in New Brunswick, and there's a little over 6,500 people, I believe, living off reserves in New Brunswick. So we have 22,000 people that need to have their voice heard. I'm not sure how many of those are here in the St. John area, but I'd be willing to listen and, like I said, respect and engage and be there to kind of do what's right to show them the appreciation for us using their land. Like I said, not a subject I'm overly educated on, but I am definitely willing to learn. So thank you for educating me on this subject today.
Thank you. So our final question tonight, we'll start with Dan. What are your thoughts on community policing, in particular where it stands now, where it's been in the past, and how do you see it being relevant in the priority neighborhoods in the future? So Dan O'Connor, policing in St. John.
Hello. So I see community policing as a very important element in our overall policing strategy. And as a member of the It Takes a Village to Raise a Teen committee, which organized public events on topics for high school parents, we had involved the community policing team to speak to parents about related issues. So I, as a council, I feel we have to, though, rely on policing experts to find a cost-effective way to meet the policing needs of our city. And the various elements related to that. So if community policing is an element of that, we need to rely on the experts to help us set that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Paula, community policing, priority neighborhoods.
Thank you, Dr. Gander. To be honest, I've been reaching out to many not-for-profit groups in our community and community centers. And even though there's supposed to be community police officer around their community centers, I've heard they're not very active in the community currently. I know that we used to have a community police officer in the Uptown Core, and it was great for us small business owners. We felt a lot safer and had somebody to reach out to if there was any problems in the community. It's my understanding that this was one of the cuts that occurred with the police budget cuts. So as a counselor, if elected, I think that it's my job to set strong policies in place, such as lowering the crime rate unit, for example. This could be measured by a certain percentage rate for major crime and minor crime separately. So there should be a reasonable goal put in place that would be achievable. This would allow the city manager to have a performance management system in place to achieve goals, reviewing and assessing progress. From there, City Hall can develop knowledge, skills, and abilities of the people of the City Hall staff. It's going to be essential that council put performance management policies and procedures in place to ensure that management has the tools available to manage the productivity for staff, and then they're able to coach them for improvements. In turn, when staff are reaching these high expectations, it gives them a great sense of accomplishment, which helps increase productivity again overall. It'll actually come down to the expertise of the police chief that the city manager will use to reach the goals of council, for example, to improve public safety. It's up to he, she, they, or them to decide if that means ensuring that community police officers are in place or if their services are better used in other areas to keep our areas safe.
Thanks, Paula. Linnea? Community policing in our priority neighborhoods.
Currently, there is a community police officer in the South End and one in Crescent Valley. I know due to staffing issues, there's vacant spots in the Old North End and Lower West. Community policing is often where important connections with the community are made. For many in the priority neighborhoods, they see these vacant spots as a setback for them. It helps with the safety and inclusiveness of these neighborhoods. Police work with youth, seniors, newcomers, as well as integrated in the communities they're located in. Often the officers sit on multiple boards. The officers work with community groups that were formed. Priority neighborhoods have had high rates of income poverty for a while, and it helps to have continued focus on them from all levels of government. In the past, community policing aligned with that goal. Community policing helps keep neighborhoods safer and officers build relationships within the community. They work collaboratively with citizens, schools, businesses, community groups, and other organizations to identify and resolve issues that affect the well-being of and livability of the entire neighborhood. And the city needs to ensure that these community policing offices are staffed. Equally important that the officers chosen can integrate well into the communities they're serving, and they work closely with social services, and they need to build trust and respect. The city has cut the budget on community policing, and many want to see it restored. And it's sad that this decision was made without prior consulting with these communities, as they consider it a setback, as I said, for them. And I'd like to work on restoring it if this is what these communities want.
Thank you, Linnea. Bruce Court, over to you. Community policing in our neighborhoods.
Hello. I fully support community policing. As a person that I was actually born in East St. John, but I lived most of my life in younger life in the North End. And community policing is so valuable to kids, and when they're growing up, and they realize that the policeman is there to be their friend, to help them, to save them, to be their buddy. They used to be involved in hockey and baseball and everything. And community policing gives more respect to the citizens, because the kids learn that the policeman is their friend and not their enemy. He's not there to hurt them. He's there to protect them from all the bad things that can happen to them. And now with the way the world's going, it's not a time to cut police budget. The police need as much money as necessary to keep St. John safe. If St. John's safe, people are happy. People are happy, there's no less crime. So I fully support the police, and I fully support community policing, because it works. I've seen it work, and I've seen the people, and I've seen the kids happy, and they go to the community centers and stuff, and they're happy to see the police. They're not like scared and want to run away. And they go home and say, "Hey, Mom, I seen the policeman today. He was all friendly. Joe was nice to me today. You're always so nice." That's what I think.
Thanks, Bruce.
Hey, just smile.
Chris Daigle, over to you. Community policing in our neighborhoods.
Thank you. This is an important topic. Again, I grew up out east, as Bruce was saying as well. I spent a lot of time in the North End in Shamrock Park, and as I got older and I started coaching Shamrock Park, I had a great mentor as a coach. It was Don Cooper. Rest in peace, Donnie. Donnie was a fantastic example of what community police officer was. Every kid in the North End knew who Donnie Cooper was, could come to him with any problem, and he was there to help support and encourage. And those are the kind of police officers we need out in our communities. The problem is, as we've all said, is we've cut that budget. And we have to restore that. That's going to be something that's it's a need of the community. We need to restore that budget. Plain and simple. Crunch to the front line hurt our residents, and we got to recalibrate. And it's not just the police officers as well, because I think if we recalibrate our police department and take a look at, let's get some civilian staff on there, like intervention workers and social workers, to work hand in hand with those police officers. So maybe they're not putting as much an impact on maybe the Department of Social Development. Maybe we have some in-house people that they can rely on and help out as well. So there's other initiatives and ways that we can help our community police officers who are, our police officers that you ask them are are stretched thin with the cuts that we've had done to them. So we have to look at training and staffing, sensitivity, as we welcome more people from different countries and cultures. Our community police officers are so key in making that impression and their time, their initial time here in Canada important. So for youth, newcomers, and seniors, all that. As a counselor, one of the first things I would want to support is reestablishing that budget for the community policing. Thank you.
Thank you. Gina Hooley, over to you. Community policing in our neighborhoods.
Hello. Yeah, so community policing is essential. I was born and raised in Uptown St. John, and I'm a strong believer in life is about choices and it takes a village. Community policing is doing something before it's prevention. It's not doing something after. I firsthand speak from experience where I can tell you that community policing works. We see things, but we don't really see it until we live it and we experience it. And I can remember as a small child having community officers making much positive impacts in my life, things that I'm much thankful for even to this day. Community policing goes beyond the boots to the ground in the streets. You know, these are our officers that are at road checks. These are our officers who are helping volunteers with MAD do roadsides and to say, hey, listen, have a great weekend. Make it your best weekend, not your last weekend. Unfortunately, the staffing issues are a direct reflection of the budget cuts that they have faced. We're having traffic issues in Champlain Heights. It was highly discussed at our last association meeting. And unfortunately, we don't have a traffic department anymore. So it's really important that we maintain these community policing. It's important that they are in these priority neighborhoods, that these children get to see a different side of the world, get to have that positive influence from the village, we'll call it, and that they get to see that there's a different way to life, you know. I really can't speak enough on how essential community policing is in not just our priority neighborhoods, but in the city of St. John in general and anywhere. So thank you.
Thank you, Gina. And we'll finish this last question with Kim, and then we'll move on to closing statements. Kimberly Hughes, over to you. Community policing in our neighborhoods.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to speak from my experience. Community policing is very important. When I was a child, I did not trust the police because they regularly picked up my uncles uptown and beat them up and threw them into jail for no reason whatsoever. So I grew up most of my life not trusting the police until one of my cousins joined the police force and became a police officer. And then I learned that you could trust the police. They were out to protect you and help you. So community policing is important because these young kids need to know, as Bruce said, as Gina said, that they can trust the police. The police are a safety net for them. If they're having issues, they can go to the police. They don't have to be fearful of them. And they know that they're looking out for their best interests. So community policing is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, so much. Did I do that right? Or yeah, Dan, you got a chance to speak on that one, did you not? Because I think I believe we'll start with Paula in the closing statements. So Paula Radwan Donovan, if you want to give us our 2 minutes of your closing thoughts for us tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Gander. So I just want you to know that I'm here to listen to your concerns and I'm going to address them. I think for far too long, St. John residents have been getting empty promises from politicians and words just to get them elected, and then they don't hear anything from them after. I'm quite tired of this too. This is the reason why I've decided to run for council. I do actually have the liberty to work full time and when I'm needed, because I do have my own business and a strong business partner that's able to step in when needed. So why am I qualified to work as your counselor? I have a strong background in finance, human resources, and management. Being an entrepreneur for the last 10 years, I've faced a lot of struggles and challenges. I've worked tirelessly to make my businesses succeed, even when it was really grim. I have been preparing myself for the last 9 years by watching all council council meetings, all growth committee meetings, all finance committee meetings. I'm actually one of 3 citizens that regularly attend council meetings in person. And by the way, I'm the only one that's running. I know what's been going on. I know how to navigate City Hall, and I've been listening to your biggest concerns. I have read through all the city documents given to the public and reviewed the city budgets annually. I know what the council duties are for governance. I will be making strong policies and putting measurable procedures in place to ensure that the work is getting completed, and then to follow up on those items to make sure that there's follow through. I'm ready to start the job right away, but I need your support to do it. Please contact me with any questions or any concerns on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. Email me at paularodwan4council@gmail.com or call my phone 721-3185. I ask you, St. John, to use your voice and vote for me, Paula Rodwan, because I will be your voice.
Thank you, Paula. Linnea, Stephen, your closing thoughts.
Thank you to UNBSJ Urban Studies and community organizations for organizing this forum and for all listeners. Our city needs someone with experience in our political system, someone who understands how it works behind the curtain, someone who will push for policies that will promote fairness and benefit everyone, that will make our city a place that people want to move to and stay. Citizens pay high rates of property taxes and expect quality services, and I'll work with my community so they have the services they expect and that they won't get all of them cut. St. John has been my home my entire life, and I love its grit and beauty. And I want to serve you, the public. I want to ensure that we don't fall behind as the world changes all around us. This means promoting progressive things such as St. John Energy and its progressive renewable energy projects, curbside recycling, all forms of transit, our parks and natural areas that have been neglected for far too long. But it also means tackling major issues like tax reforms and a new deal for the city. I'm not afraid to push industries or government for these issues. I've done it many times. I know how to do it. I have the experience behind me. I'm ready to go, and I'm confident that I can do it and will get others on board as well. I understand that we must also develop economically and feel that my travel and tourism background is an asset that will help promote the city. I will sell us to potential new residents, but we must have people who understand how to retain them as well. A more diverse community will enrich us in so many ways, but I can't accomplish all this without you, the voter. On May 10th, I'm asking you to vote for me so we can move our city forward and get what we need to succeed. You can find me on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, just look up my name, Linnea Astephen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linnea. Bruce Court, your closing thoughts.
Thank you. Well, as I said previous, I have 14 years on the pension plan. I have a master's degree in trust management standards, one of only 60 people in Canada. I've never missed a pension meeting. I never missed a training session in 14 years, and I've never got paid 5 cents. I did it because I loved the city. I wanted to fix the problems with the pension plan, which in 2008 had my best friends hate me. I had people hit me in the head. I had people strike me because of the fact that they said, don't lose our pension money. I just started and they were beating on me. But anyway, I have the experience, and I got a shock for everybody that's running for council. The mayor, city manager, and the council do not run the city. You'll find out when you get in there, the management team does. The management team is stronger than any union. Any union. They decide, they discipline themselves, they give themselves raises. There's too many engineers. We got to reduce management teams. They're the highest paid people. The comment was in the paper, oh, they gave a small raise. Well, if you're making $100,000 and some, a small raise, is quite a bit compared to somebody making $40,000 as a secretary. So anyway, I was the most called counselor when I was in council in 2008, 2012, and I always called everybody back and did exactly what the people wanted, not what I wanted, what the people want. So if you want a strong voice, vote for Bruce Court. You can get me at 696-3242, bruce.court@hotmail.com. Call me and I'll answer all your questions. Thank you very much. Vote Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. Chris Daigle, your final words.
Thank you for the opportunity this afternoon to share my views. You know, I'm proud to hold a position within the community where my focus is the success of the local economy. That has been the most rewarding experience I've had career-wise, and I know I can transfer that over into helping the city grow as well. My involvement in business, recreation, arts and culture, and community events, I think that illustrates my desire to see St. John grow and prosper, and where we need to have people stay in St. John and welcome more people to St. John. I think we need to have someone that's balanced and understands what, you know, that there's wants and needs, but we have to balance both of those, because if we don't address the wants and just the needs, people are going to go out to the suburbs. We've seen it. We've seen the lower property taxes out there, and they get full advantage of having the city right next door that they work in and play in. So at the end of the day, I'm someone who can bring an eye on the financial health of the city, but also can understand the needs of our fields and our rinks and you know, the trails, the res, MISPEC, all these beautiful facilities and parks and our roadways. Someone really needs to stand up for those, not just for our budgets and you know, our deficits. We really need to address the needs and the wants of our residents. I think that's huge. Or we're just going to lose them. We'll never reach the goal of 2,000 people coming into the city, because we're going to lose people. They're going to go to the suburbs. They're going to go somewhere else. So I plan to be a counselor who wants to stay in the city, and I want to fight for St. John and what the vision I see and the investments we need. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Gina Hooley, your final words. Chris, I love your timer. Gina, are you there?
I'm just teasing. I have the gift of gab, if you couldn't all tell. So I'm here tonight. My answers haven't really been scripted. Like I said, I did have to do a little bit of research on the reconciliation because it wasn't something I'm overly educated on. But at the end of the day, I'm Gina Hooley. I've been born and raised in St. John. When I speak, I typically speak from experience, being raised in St. John, breaking the cycle, becoming a young single mother, raising my children, and like becoming a homeowner at 19 and raising my kids ever since to have that better lifestyle. Like I say, community policing showed me from taking the whole village term that there is another way to life. Often I face challenges. I've been known for having great skills with conflict resolution, for making relationships with people who are resistant to making relationships. So if elected, I plan on making these relationships with our other levels of government to bring the priorities of St. John to the forefront. Things such as our tax reform, maintaining our essential services. You know, we didn't really get into much tonight, but our infrastructure, you know, our water and sewage, our roads, our fire, you know, these are all things that are going to have to really be talked about at some point, things that are going to have to be dedicated to maintaining these services in a level that St. John has known to become accustomed to, right? Like I want to know when my house is on fire and I dial 911 that, you know, a fire truck is coming, and all the fire trucks are coming if needed, right? I want to know if I'm in a car accident and I'm involved with like the person's involved with road rage, that a police officer can come and protect my safety, right? You know, I want to know when I turn on my tap and my water's brown that I'm going to call and, you know, the outside workers are going to be there to fix it. I want clean, safe drinking water. You know, These are all things that we've come to know. And as your candidate for Ward 4 St. John East, I will advocate for all these things for you. I'm not going to give you my information.
Oh, Gina, I'm sorry, you got cut off there. This will be on Facebook, and so you can always add your contact information there. Kimberly, your final words.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hi. I just want to say I don't have all this experience like a lot of everybody else that's running in the ward. I am a rookie. This is my first time running for common council or anything to that effect. But if you elect me, I want to be for the people and look after the needs and the wants of the people. So I just thank you if you give me your vote on May the 10th. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Kimberly Hughes. And Dan O'Connor, you'll close us, and then I'll just have a brief closing statement for us all. So Dan, your final words.
Okay, so I too want to thank UNB for organizing this forum. These are important community issues that need ongoing conversations with stakeholders to find effective solutions. So the incoming council will have to work together as a team to engage the communities and provide leadership within our municipal mandate. As your councillor, I will dedicate my time and effort on your behalf. I will work to continue to make St. John a great place to live. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dan, and thanks again to everyone who helped and participated in this candidate forum, and particularly to those who put their name forward for the election coming up. St. John is my hometown. I grew up here myself, and I'm raising my kids here, so anyone who's willing to make it a better place and preserve the beauty and wonder of St. John, then I salute you. This is a live session. It's been recorded, will be posted online for people to watch. Please follow UNB St. John's Facebook page at www.facebook.com/UNB St. John for updates on future forum recordings for the other wards. And thanks again, everyone, for organizing. It's been a wonderful evening, and good luck on May 10th.